He just took it over. Just like Jesus did. When he was standing before Pilate, he said, look, I might be here, but you have to answer to God. And this is beautiful. Listen to this ending. You know, if you don't know what to say to people, photocopy chapter 26 and take them to lunch and read it. And discuss it in dialogue. And now as he had made this defense, it's like Festus is intervening and changing the subject. If people disagree with you, they have two options. Say they don't understand or attack your character. They will either claim ignorance or attack you. Well, guess which one they did? They attacked Paul. Festus did. Now as he thus made his defense, Festus said with a loud voice. That's how you get people's attention, to know you're serious, right? Vocal production. Paul, you are beside yourself. Much learning is driving you mad. He wanted everybody to know that he thought Paul was crazy. So that everybody would leave there knowing what he said. Nobody had to say, what Festus say? And this is humility, this is gentleness, this is a spirit-filled man that doesn't yell in return. Notice the humility and the grace and the confidence and the boldness right here. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus. You're a noble man, you're a royal man. I respect your position, I honor you, but I'm not mad. You know what the flesh would say? I'm not crazy, you're crazy. Shouting match, trial's over, people leave. Christ is left in the dust. The testimony is now about the anger of Paul and Festus, not Jesus. How many times do we mess up a witness because of our own sinfulness and pride and flesh? It's just fleshliness. I'm not mad, most noble Festus, but I speak words of truth and reason. For the king before whom Paul now addresses King Agrippa, even though for the king before whom I also speak freely knows these things. You know what he's just talked about? Accountability to Agrippa. The king knows these things. He's accountable for what I've just said. For I am convinced that none of these things escapes his attention, since this thing was not done in a corner. God's witnesses since the beginning of time have been public. His word has been publicly read, publicly proclaimed. Jesus didn't hide out. Everybody knows about his ministry. Paul's not done with Agrippa. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you do. You know what he's saying? If you believe the prophets, you must believe in Jesus. That's incredible. If you believe the prophets, they point to him. They name him. It's all about him. If you believe, Agrippa is on the hot seat, folks. And you know why a lot of people don't witness? They don't want to make anybody feel awkward. Feel awkward? Let me tell you what awkward is. Eternal hell. That's awkward. And I hate that place. I hate that it exists. But I believe it to be true. And I don't like awkward any more than anybody else. But I'm willing for awkward moments, if by some chance, by the grace of God, they might receive Jesus as their Savior. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you do believe. Then Agrippa said to Paul, you almost persuade me to become a Christian. And Paul said, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me today, the small and the great, the soldiers, the servants, and the royalty. I love the obscure as much as I love you, King, that they might become both almost and altogether such as I am. You know what Paul's saying? I love being a Christian. Say, Paul, you're incarcerated. Your life has been one arrest after another. Paul says, I wish you could have my life. It's so fulfilling because I know I'm in God's purpose. Paul says, I want you to become like me, But notice what he says. We're almost done. Except for these chains. I wish everybody come to Christ, but I hope you don't have to have the chains that I have. I wish you a Christian life free from bondage. That wasn't his purpose for Paul, but Paul says, I wish it would be his purpose for you. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that kind of Paul? To not only want them to be a Christian, but to hope that they wouldn't have to face incarceration like he has. When he had said these things, the king stood up, as well as the governor. You know what that means? This trial is over. When the king stands up, the judge stands up, everything stops, right? We all stand up. With the governor, Bernice, and those with him, and when they had gone aside, they talked among themselves, and they said, this man is doing nothing deserving death or imprisonment. He's innocent. He's an innocent man that is there because people lied about him. And he didn't die this day, but one day, folks, he would die an innocent man because of the resurrection. He believed it that much. He's willing to die for it. Then Agrippa said to Festus, this man might have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar. Something the world will never understand is that we are not called to freedom. We are called to faithfulness. Paul had a chance to be free in the Philippian jail when the gates swung open. But instead of running away, he saved the life of the guard, led him to Christ, and went back to jail till he was released. What's your story? Do you have a story? Say, Pastor, I have a story, but it's not really, that's Hollywood. That's drama. You know what? I used to say about my father's salvation and mine, I used to say, I want to tell you about my radical salvation. And I realized there's no such thing as a non-radical salvation. For everyone who turns to God from darkness and from the wrong kingdom, and they come into light and the right kingdom. First question is, do you have a testimony that you're confident of that you are a Christian? The second one is, do you care enough to share that with others? That is, I don't know all of God's purposes for your life, but that is His ultimate purpose. That one is there for all of you. And we need to pray for our own salvation today and pray for the salvation of those that God brings to our life, to our mind, to our attention.